For years, the Jeffrey Epstein case has been this huge puzzle, with most of the important pieces completely blacked out. But now, well, that black ink is finally starting to fade. New information is coming out, unmasking names that have been hidden from the public for a long, long time. So in this explainer, we're going to break down what these new files actually tell us, who's been named, and why this is all happening right now. So the big question is, why now? After all this time, what suddenly changed to bring these long-hidden names into the light? Well, as we're about to see, the answer is a pretty messy mix of political pressure, conflicting stories from officials, and a Justice Department that's been put under a serious microscope. So what happened? Well, a few lawmakers got a look at the unredacted files, and let's just say they were not happy with what was being kept secret. That kicked off this huge pressure campaign that basically forced the Department of Justice's hand, leading to some pretty significant new disclosures. So let's get to it. Who was named? Okay, so here are the key individuals that have just been unmasked in these new files. We've got Les Wexner, the billionaire who was behind Victoria's Secret. Then there's Lesley Groff, who was Epstein's right-hand assistant for years. We also have Jean-Luc Brunel, a French modeling agent with a very dark history. And then there's a fourth name, Sultan bin Sulayem, who pops up in a really, really weird email that we have got to talk about. So how did this dam of secrecy finally break? Well, it definitely wasn't a sudden change of heart at the DOJ. No, this was a full-blown stare-down between members of Congress and the Justice Department over what exactly was being kept from the public eye. Yeah, this slide right here really gets to the heart of the conflict. On one side, you have Congressman Thomas Massie who, after seeing the full documents, went public. He claimed the DOJ was actively protecting incriminated men. But on the other side, you have Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche insisting the DOJ was hiding nothing. This very public back and forth created a situation where keeping those names under wraps just wasn't going to fly anymore. All right, let's really dig into these individuals and the conflicting stories swirling around them. Because what you're about to see is a pattern. For every official accusation you find in a document, there's an immediate, and I mean immediate, and forceful pushback. Okay, first up is Les Wexner. And this is a big one. A newly unredacted FBI document from 2019 is pretty blunt about it. It straight up lists him as a co-conspirator. Now, Wexner was a longtime associate of Epstein's. Epstein's actually managed his massive fortune for years. The Wexner has always said he cut all ties way back in 2007. But, of course, his legal team came out swinging. They released this statement saying, hold on a second, the lead prosecutor told us point blank that Wexner was not a target and that he had cooperated fully. So you've got this massive contradiction, right? An official FBI document says one thing, and the man's lawyers say a prosecutor told them the complete opposite. It's confusing. And it doesn't stop with Wexner. That very same FBI document also names Lesley Groff, Epstein's longtime assistant, as a co-conspirator. I mean, Groff was at his side for years, managing his entire schedule, his life. She was one of the people who knew his day-to-day operations better than almost anyone. So her name popping up is a big deal. And you guessed it, same story here. Her lawyer pushes back hard, saying they were never, ever told she was considered a co-conspirator. In fact, he claims that after she voluntarily answered every single question prosecutors had for her, they explicitly told her she would not be prosecuted. So there's that pattern again, a damning label in a document, followed by a total denial claiming prosecutors said something else entirely. Then we have Jean-Luc Brunel, and his story. It's just tragic and incredibly complicated. He's also named as a co-conspirator. The former modeling agent was arrested on some truly horrific charges. He always maintained his innocence, but in 2022, he was found dead in his cell. His death was ruled a suicide. Okay, and then we get to this. This might be one of the most chilling and just bizarre things to come out of these new files. It's an email from Jeffrey Epstein back in 2009, and it's just one single, deeply unsettling line. So who was he sending that to? It turns out the recipient was revealed to be Sultan bin Sulayem, a powerful CEO from the UAE. Now, I have to be super clear here. We have absolutely no idea what this torture video is. The context is a total mystery. We have no idea what Epstein was referring to, which honestly just makes the whole thing even more disturbing. So look, all of these new names and details, they don't just raise questions about the people involved. They put a huge, glaring spotlight right back on the Justice Department itself and how they've handled this case from the very beginning, which has always been controversial. To really get why people are so frustrated, you gotta rewind to 2007. Federal prosecutors had a draft indictment all ready to go. It alleged a conspiracy involving Epstein and 3 other unnamed co-conspirators. But they didn't go through with it. Instead, they cut that now infamous non-prosecution agreement with him, which let him avoid all the major federal charges. He ended up serving just 13 months on lesser state charges, just 13 months. And that brings us to one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle that is still missing. Who were those 3 other people? The ones who were set to be indicted right alongside Epstein back in 2007? We still don't know.
Right. And this is where it all gets really, really confusing. Because on one hand, you've got that 2007 draft indictment alleging a conspiracy to procure underage girls. But then, just last year, you have the FBI director telling Congress that there just wasn't credible information that Epstein trafficked girls to other people. So how can both of those things be true? It just doesn't add up.
And if you were hoping for answers from the official review of that controversial 2007 deal, well, you'd be disappointed. A 2020 internal review basically landed on poor judgment. They said the prosecutor used poor judgment but stopped short of calling it professional misconduct. As you can imagine, for the victims and so many others, that finding felt like a total slap in the face. So, after all of this, where does that leave us? We've got new names, sure, but we also have a whole new and growing list of questions. And in a lot of ways, things feel even less clear than they did before. You have to wonder, right? Why has the DOJ's whole approach to these documents been so chaotic and inconsistent? The fact that names are only being released after a ton of public pressure, it can't help but look like someone's trying to hide something, whether that's the intention or not. And I'm going to keep coming back to this. Who are those 3 unnamed co-conspirators from 2007? Who were they and why, after all these years, have their names never been released? And of course, the torture video. What was in it? Was it even real? We just don't have the answers, and that uncertainty hangs over all of these new documents like a dark cloud. And all of this leads to maybe the toughest question of all. With Epstein and Brunel dead, and with others issuing these firm denials, what does accountability even mean in this case anymore? Unredacting a name is not a conviction. And as these new files show, the path to any kind of real justice is more complicated than ever.